Hello everybody out there in YouTube land. So from time to time on this channel I'm going to talk about different artists in the comic book industry. Pretty much, the really prolific artists, but also ones that I enjoy. I'll just cover them because I like their art. In this case, we have a situation of both, because I'm going to be talking about the legendary George Perez. And he's actually so legendary, a lot of his fans refer to him simply as the Legend. So he's won a lot of awards, going back. In 1979, he won an Eagle Award for his work on the Avengers, and he won an Eagle Award again in 1980, so back-to-back years for his work on the Avengers. He also received an Inkpot Award in 1983, and let's see, in 85 he was an honoree for Crisis on Infinite Earths, for DC's anniversary, I think. Let's see, and he got the Jack Kirby Award. Oh, he was nominated for the Jack Kirby Award. And let's see, he's won several Comic Buyer's Guide fan awards in the 80s. And let's see, he's worked on several stories, which, let's see, he won CBG's award for Favorite Comic Book Story for 1984's The Judas Contract, which was actually just made into a movie, a DC animated movie, which the Teen Titans has really paid off for DC, and a lot of that is drawing from his work, so that's cool. Let's see, Beyond the Silent Night, so issue 7 of Infinite Crisis, he won Crisis on Infinite Earths, issue 7. He won he won that same award for that, and then also for A Lonely Place of Dying, which is a Batman story. So, a little bit about George Perez. He was born in 1954, and he grew up in the Bronx. His parents moved to the United States before they met, but they are both originally from Puerto Rico. Now, starting off in his early career, George Perez was the assistant for Rich Buckler. Buckler. For Rich Buckler. So in 1973, George Perez got his start working as Rich Buckler's assistant at Marvel Comics. And the sad thing about that is Rich Buckler actually just died this year in 2017, about 2 weeks ago. So that was quite a big thing that's kind of got people shaken up still. And of course, Rich Buckler created the character DEATHLOK, and George Perez did some penciling on that. So he also did penciling on Sons of the Tiger, and worked on Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. Most notably, though, he worked on White Tiger and Spider-Man. He did the covers for the Spider-Man titles, if they had White Tiger. So that was in the early 70s when he's starting out. Continuing on in the 70s, he worked, it looks like, starting on the Avengers. He started working on that at issue 141. And he worked for Marvel for a while there. He worked on the Inhumans and Fantastic Four, as well as the Avengers. And then he went over, okay, so he was working with Marv Wolfman even back then, for the Fantastic Four annual, it looks like. So, starting in 1980, George Perez was offered to work for Marvel's rival, DC Comics, So it looked like he worked for Marvel for about 7 years before he came to DC, which is kind of interesting to me as a side note, because I first came in contact with George Perez's art in DC Comics. So he started out on the New Teen Titans, as most of you will know. He also he came over to work on Justice League, was what they drew him with, drew him to the company with, and but the Teen Titans was the main thing he's known for, and what he did a lot of, and what he won awards for. He also co-created the character Cyborg, which has become pretty prominent. He's got a movie coming up. He's going to be in the new Justice League movie that's coming out. So a lot of people know Cyborg, and that's George Perez creation for New Teen Titans. Let's see. So he took a leave of absence from the New Teen Titans in 1984 after working on it for 4 years to work on the Crisis event, the big event for DC, Crisis on Infinite Earths. And of course, he drew that, and Marv Wolfman wrote it. And that's kind of my be-all, end-all when it comes to comic books. It's kind of like the gold standard. Crisis on Infinite Earths, I can't say enough good things about it. It's incredible. So moving on from that, he worked on Wonder Woman when she was rebooted in 1987. So he did covers and pencils for that. And in 88, came back to the New Teen Titans for a while. An interesting thing, looks like in 83, he was working on Action Comics 544, and he actually designed Lex Luthor's trademark battle suit. So whenever you see Lex Luthor in his battle suit, you can thank George Perez for thinking of it. So moving on from that, in the early 90s, looks like George Perez had a little bit of problems with DC Comics over Wonder Woman, because things were crossing over with her and other stories, and it was causing his stories to have conflicts. So he went back and worked for Marvel for a time, and let's see. Yeah, okay, so he actually helped create some of the most important stuff for Marvel, too, because in 1991, he was signed on to pencil the 6-issue limited series Infinity Gauntlet for Marvel Comics. So he worked on Infinity Gauntlet, and then, let's see, he moved on and worked on The Incredible Hulk, also in the early 90s. And then he returned in 1996 to work for DC Comics again, and did the New Teen Titans Volume 2, which was written and penciled by Dan Jurgens. And let's see, that carries him into the late 90s. He worked for... and he co-owned a comic called... I see, it was kind of unfinished. Anyways, he worked for, or owned something called Guerrilla Comics. Moving on from that, in May 2006, he returned to DC. And let's see. He drew 10 issues of DC's The Brave and the Bold in 2007. From 2007 to 2010, with writer Mark Waid, who you might know from Kingdom Come, among other things. But as a DC fan, you probably know him from Kingdom Come. I know I do. And let's see. He also drew covers for Infinite Crisis, which was the big, one of the big events in the mid-2000s. We had Identity Crisis, and then Infinite Crisis, and then Final Crisis, and then Flashpoint. But he drew for Infinite Crisis. And finally wrapping it up in the late 2000s, it looks like he drew for the New 52. Let's see, he did. Oh, I actually own this comic. It's a great cover. He drew the cover and breakdowns for New 52 Superman. So I have the #1 from that. So that's pretty much George Perez. He's a really great, amazing guy. Of course, I mean, I've never met him, but I've read numerous accounts, and you know, he's someone you really want to talk to if you ever see him at a convention. He's really great to the fans. He does autographs, he does commissions, and he takes pictures with people, and he's really just all about the fans and all about the comics. You know, he's old school, from a mold that, you know, we might not see as much anymore. You know, he's like from the golden age, but he lived in a more modern time. So I guess that's all for now. Be sure to share these videos if you know any like-minded people who like comic books, and you know, if you're able to like and subscribe, that would be a big help to me. Thanks for taking the time out to listen, and I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you.